you. Welcome. I'll call the regular May 13th, 2024 meeting of council to order at 6 p.m. We have quite the agenda, so we will get into it. We have Councillor Hallerou and I believe Councillor Bowman as well will be joining us by Zoom for a hybrid meeting. And I'll make sure I look up here to make sure we try to see everybody. With that, I will ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Just double check that Councillor Hallerou can hear us. Councillor Hallerou, can you hear everybody here? Yeah, I see. Excellent.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
And we can hear you as well. Excellent. And then I'll call on Councillor Use for the consent agenda, please.
Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hallerou, that the items contained in the May 13th, 2024 consent agenda be adopted as presented.
Any discussion on that? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will go to the April 8th, 2024 minutes. Councillor Hallerou, please.
Okay, ma'am.
I don't have any gender passing here.
Okay. No,
I don't have my.
Okay, I can read that out for you. It's that the minutes of the April 8th, 2024 regular meeting of council will be adopted as presented. Are you wanting to move that?
Yes, I'll move that.
Okay. Councillor Van Kootenbos, is there a second?
Yes.
Discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And Councillor Van Kootenbos, the April 23rd minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the minutes of the April 23rd, 2024 special meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And now we are going to head into a public meeting for development charges. Okay. Tonight, council is holding a public meeting under Section 12 of the Development Charge Act 1997 as amended. The purpose of this meeting is to give the public an opportunity to ask questions, provide comments, and make recommendations on the 2024 Development Charges Background Study. This study calculates new development charges for services related to highways, fire protection, parks, and recreation services. Council will not be taking any action this evening on this report or bylaw. Has the clerk received any correspondence on the background study that is not noted on the agenda?
I have, and it has been forwarded to the consultants as well as the treasurer for response.
Excellent, thank you. Prior to receiving public comments, we will ask our consultant, Sean Michael Stephen of Watson Associates Economists Limited, to provide a brief presentation of the findings of the study. Welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. So while that's loading up, just the intent of the, do I need to load up on my end?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. There we go. I'm just going to do him.
Down at the bottom. Danielle, full screen mode.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. I played with this today. There you go.
Thank you. So the intent of the presentation being the public meeting is required under the Development Charges Act as to provide public and council an opportunity to receive feedback on the matter. What's happened there? Hopefully that doesn't happen again. So with development charges being a tool available to municipalities to recover the capital costs associated with new development, what I did want to highlight was that recently in last month, as you would be aware, the province introduced Bill 185, which does include changes to the Development Charges Act. Those aren't yet enforced, but I will highlight where those changes, if enacted, will have impacts on the proposed bylaw and calculated charges. So the study process that was followed in preparing the background study and draft bylaw started in June of last year, going through this process with the County of Oxford and the other area municipalities in a joint manner, proceeding to presenting draft findings to Council in March of this year prior to releasing the study publicly and consulting with development industry stakeholders on the matter in March. Then proceeding to the public meeting today, the bylaw will come back to Council for consideration at your June 10th meeting with an anticipated effective date of June 13th. To highlight the key elements of the methodology that's been required or followed as required under the Act, it started with looking at the amount, type, and location of residential and non-residential growth within the town. That being based initially on the county's comprehensive review to 2046 and then looking at anticipated development over the 10-year forecast period, an assessment of the increase in need for service for new development, recognizing there are only certain services that are eligible for inclusion in a development charge bylaw, and making sure that that increase in need for service is not greater than the average level of service that was in place over the past 15 years on average in the town. Once recognizing the capital cost to provide that increase in need for service, we recognize the deductions that are required under the Act, including any grants that are anticipated towards the capital projects, as well as the benefit to existing development. And then the net development charge recoverable costs are apportioned over the anticipated development to calculate the charge per residential unit and per square foot or square meter of non-residential gross floor area. So the growth forecast over the 10-year period includes about 18 to 20% growth between the non-residential and residential sectors. We can see that within the residential portion of the development, there's just under 2,800 additional population growth over that period. That would be accommodating a little under 1,200 residential dwelling units. And on the non-residential side, we'd see employment growth about just under 1,600 employees, 18% growth. That would produce just under 200,000 square meters of gross floor area development. So to provide service to that increment of development over that 10-year period, the services that have been included are services related to a highway, which includes roads and related infrastructure, as well as associated public works, vehicles, and facilities, fire protection services, and parks and recreation services. I'll note that currently, as changed through Bill 23, studies are not a development charge eligible cost and have not been included in this proposal. However, Bill 185 does propose to add those back in and also includes a streamlined amendment process. And so depending on the timing of when Bill 185 is enacted and if the studies are added back in as an eligible cost, those will come forward in an amendment to the draft bylaw or the passed bylaw, again, depending on timing. So across those three service areas, the total gross capital costs of the projects that have been identified are just over $71 million. We can see that the largest share of those costs have been deducted as a post-period benefit on the left-hand side of the pie chart, those being costs that are ultimately growth-related but not of a benefit to growth within the 10-year period. About 28% of the costs have been deducted as a benefit to existing development and not included in the calculation of the charge, and as well as about 2% deducted for grant subsidies and other contributions, and about 1% for the existing development charge reserve funds. That leaves us about 24% of the costs included in the calculation of the charge, with the majority of those costs, about $14 million, being of a residential benefit. Looking at the total $17 million in growth-related costs between residential and non-residential benefit, the majority of those costs are related to parks and recreation services, at about 57%, just under $10 million, about $2.1 million for fire protection, and about $5.4 million for services related to a highway. So then the charge has been calculated on the same basis as the current charge within the town's development charge bylaw, calculated by residential dwelling unit type for single and semi-detached dwellings, other multiples, apartments of 2-bedroom and greater or 1-bedroom and bachelor, and then the non-residential side per square meter of gross floor area or per wind turbine. You can see that the total calculated charge is $14,574 for a single and semi-detached dwelling unit. And what's noted in this table as well on the bottom row is the year one charge at 80% of the full charge, as currently under the Development Charges Act, bylaws are required to be phased in over the first 5 years, with only 80% imposed in the first year of the bylaw. That is proposed to be, requirement is proposed to be removed through Bill 185, where the full charge could be imposed upon bylaw passage. So then looking at how that charge compares to your current charge, we can see that the fully calculated charge is about a $9,700 increase from the current charge of $4,890. And when looking at the year one charge, it's about a $6,800 increase, again shown if the phase-in of the charge is still required, and that will be again dependent on the timing of when Bill 185 is enacted. Looking at the non-residential charge, we see the increase is much less, only a 3% increase in that calculated charge, and that's because the biggest driver of the residential increase is parks and recreation services, which are not of a significant non-residential benefit. So then to look at how that charge compares to your current charge in comparison to the other Oxford County municipalities and some other surrounding geographies, we can see that currently the town's charge places towards the bottom end of the comparison, as indicated by the dark gray arrow. You can see with the left-hand blue arrow the position of the town with the full residential charges imposed. And this includes not only the town's charge or the lower tier municipal charges in the dark blue section of the stacked bar, but also the upper tier charges imposed by the county in the yellow section. And so those charges for the county are shown as the proposed charges that have come through their draft background study and bylaw as well. And so we can see that the increase in the town's position relative to the other municipalities is driven relatively equally by their increase as well as the increase in the county's charge. So then looking at non-residential development, firstly for commercial, development charges currently in the town are fully exempt for non-residential developments. Only the county's charge would be imposed. That is the proposed policy to continue. And so we can see a slight increase in the county's charge would increase the position of the town to above that of Malahide and below that of Southwest Oxford in Mount Elgin, but maintaining the same relative position towards the bottom end of the comparison. And then lastly, for industrial development, the county as well as the town currently exempt industrial development. It is the county or the town's proposed policy to continue that exemption for all non-residential development, and industrial development is also proposed to continue to be exempt in the county's draft bylaw as well. So then just to run through the bylaw policies that govern the implementation of the charge. So the charges will be calculated and collected at building permit issuance, except for where developments proceed through site plan or zoning bylaw amendment applications. Those charges will be calculated on the day those applications are made. They're then held at that rate until, for a maximum period, until 2 years after the planning application is approved. Bill 185 does propose to reduce that period to 18 months. There are mandatory installment payments for rental housing and institutional developments, and interest can also be charged on those frozen development charge rates as well as the installment payments in accordance with the Act. In terms of the exemptions to the payment of charges, you don't impose the charges on yourselves or upper tier governments or school boards. You don't impose the charges on land that's intended for use by a university. If you were charging industrial charges, there would be an exemption for expansions to existing buildings. And there are exemptions for additional residential units in existing or new single-detached, semi-detached, and row homes. We can add up to 2 additional units, and they would be exempt with only one being in an ancillary unit. So those all being statutorily required. Additional statutory exemptions being nonprofit housing, inclusionary zoning, affordable housing units. Affordable housing units as defined in the Development Charges Act will be in effect on June 1st, as the province has recently released the bulletin defining the affordable and rental price thresholds. There is a discount for rental housing development based on the number of bedrooms in each dwelling unit. And as I've touched on a couple times already, there is the mandatory reduction of the charge once a new bylaw is passed, that is currently in effect, but is proposed to be removed through Bill 185. The non-statutory exemptions are proposed to remain the same as in the current bylaw, where non-residential uses, farm buildings, places of worship, public hospitals, development in central business districts and entrepreneurial areas, temporary buildings, structures and dwelling units, long-term care homes, and affordable housing where it's provided through an agreement with the county would all be exempt. The redevelopment credit policies also remain unchanged, where if you have a building or structure that's demolished and replaced or converted to another use, that redevelopment does not represent an increase in need for service. We're just replacing like for like, and therefore development charges are not payable in those situations. Lastly, in terms of the administration of the bylaw, it's proposed that it will come into force on June 13th. It will be indexed on a mandatory basis, consistent with your current policies, although the date is proposed to be moved to June 13th of each year, being the anniversary date of the bylaw. And if the phase-in of the charge does still apply, as is currently in effect through Bill 23, that phase-in would change on June 13th, the anniversary date of the bylaw each year. So the next steps in the process are to receive feedback from the public. If there is an amendment to the bylaw, that will be, an addendum to the study and to the draft bylaw, that would be prepared prior to the bylaw passage, which is considered for June 10th. And then if Bill 185 is enacted after that date, there would be an amendment to the bylaw after that point to address the inclusion of the growth-related study costs. And again, the Bill 185 includes a streamlined amendment process, so there would not be the requirement for a background study and public process to undertake that amendment. So this concludes the presentation.
Thank you very much. I will now ask for comments from the public. Anyone in attendance is invited to approach the lectern and comment on the 2024 Development Charges Background Study. Those who provide comments are asked to give their name and address for the public record. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to give comments? Seeing none, is there anybody online that's registered? Seeing none. Members of council may now have the opportunity to ask any questions about the application. However, hold off any comments until we are debating the bylaw when it's brought forward. Are there any questions of council? Seeing none. If there are no further comments or questions, the public meeting is now closed. Council would like to take the opportunity to urge the public to submit their written comments on the study to the attention of the clerk at danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca prior to June 3rd, 2024. Council consideration of development charges bylaw is scheduled for the June 10th, 2024 regular meeting. And with that, I will call upon Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hudson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the presentation from Watson and Associates Economists as information, and that the development charges bylaw be brought to the June 10th regular meeting for Council's consideration.
Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. I know you're a busy person right now going around doing all these studies, so thank you very much for your time this evening. Okay, and that is complete. So we will now go to special staff reports, which we will start with CP 2024 modification SB 22-03-6. Mr. Grace, please.
Yes, this being a modification of the draft plan, approved plan of subdivision, I'm going to turn this directly over to the planner.
Thank you, Mr. Graves, and good evening, Council. The County of Oxford has received a request to modify a draft-approved plan of subdivision, which is located on the northwest corner of Wallace Line and Robinson Road. The draft plan of subdivision was approved on February 10th of 2023 and proposed the creation of 4 blocks for future industrial development. And if it's possible to bring up plate 3 of the staff report, we can go through what was initially approved and what's being proposed. Thank you. So specifically what has been approved was 4 blocks for future industrial development, including 1 block for a sanitary pumping station, 1 block for stormwater management facilities on the north end of the property, 1 block to recognize the existing environmental features, as well as the creation, thank you, of 1 new public road. The requested modification now proposes to further subdivide blocks 2 and 3, which are located on the south end of the property, into 9 additional blocks, ranging in size from 1.6 hectares or 3.9 acres to 3.1 hectares or 7.6 acres, with frontages proposed both on the new road shown as Street 1 on the proposed draft plan, as well as frontage on Wallace Line and Robinson Road to the south. No changes are proposed to the remainder of the blocks on the plan or the previously approved road alignment. The subject property is currently 142 acres in size, and as stated, the northern portion of the property does contain lands that are located within the 5 Points provincially significant wetland complex. However, no changes or any development are proposed for these environmental features to the north. So at this time, the applicant is actively working on clearing the required conditions of their draft approval and has been working with town and county staff as well as the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority to satisfy their requirements with respect to the detailed engineered plans for the subdivision. And staff are satisfied that the requested amendment to the draft plan will allow the applicant to continue to work through their detailed engineered submission to reflect the new proposed lot arrangement rather than undertake a future application for site plan part lot control exemption. And staff are satisfied that the request will continue to meet the policy direction of the provincial policy statement and the county's official plan, as the proposed lots will continue to be used for industrial purposes, while continuing to maintain sufficient setback from those existing environmental features to the north. And further, the existing site-specific zoning, the special general industrial NG-9 zoning provisions will continue to apply. The town engineering department has requested that a 1-foot reserve block be established along the blocks with frontage along Wallace Line and Robinson Road in order to restrict any future development on these lands until such time as the town has had an opportunity to undertake a detailed site plan process. And this is consistent with the existing development provisions in the existing subdivision agreement. No other comments or concerns were received from any of the public agencies circulated, and overall staff are satisfied that the proposal is appropriate from a planning perspective, and we're recommending that Town Council advise Oxford County Council that they support the requested amendment to modify the draft approved plan of subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the report? Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Heather. So the lots that are proposed for the east side going on to Wallace Line, will they have road access? Will that be the road access into parking areas for those blocks, or is there going to be another potential road down in through there?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Hughes. I apologize, I lost our map, but the intent for future development, there's no additional road proposed aside from the Street A that was previously approved. So future access to those lots on the east side of the property and the south side of the property will be accessed by Wallace Line and Robinson Road. But the purpose of that 1-foot reserve is to restrict access until such time as town staff have had an opportunity to review a detailed site plan for each of those new lots. And that will allow staff to ensure that the new accesses are appropriately located.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions of the report? Seeing none, Councillor Hudson, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Planner's Report CP 2024-148 as information, and that Council of the Town of Ingersoll advise Oxford County that the town supports the requested modification to the draft approved plan of subdivision submitted by GSP Group, SB 22-036, for lands described as Part Lot 25, Concession 1, West Oxford, in the town of Ingersoll, to further subdivide blocks 2 and 3 to create 9 new blocks for industrial purposes, with the addition of the requested 1-foot reserve blocks along the frontages of blocks 2D, 2C, 3B, 3E, 3D, and 3C.
Thank you very much. Discussion? None. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And now we'll move on to C-013-24, Community Garden Lease. Mr. Grace, please.
Thank you. This community garden program has been running quite well. The group would like to again take it on this year, so we're proposing another lease agreement, and we're proposing that should the arrangement remain consistent over the next few years, that we will likely just have it be approved by staff. So we're delegating that authority, and I'm probably stealing the clerk's thunder and explaining all that.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that, clerk?
No, that was an excellent summary. Thank you.
Are there questions of the report from council? Seeing none. Councillor Halleroux? Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Halleroux, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report C-013-24 as information, and that Council approve the reestablishment of the community garden for the 2024 planting season, subject to the terms of the lease agreement attached to the report. And further, that Council delegate authority to the mayor and clerk to execute an annual lease renewal with substantially the same terms and conditions as the original, for the purpose of permitting the annual operation of the community garden as requested by the lessees.
Thank you. Discussion. I think this is a wonderful thing that happens in our community. It shows what people in cooperation, what happens, and certainly it is at a nominal fee just to make sure that it is legal. But I think that also the changes are good. This keeps coming back, and I've never heard any objections to it. So I think it's a good move that it's just done administratively, and unless it changes significantly. So certainly have my support in that one. Any further comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will move on to AMO Delegation C-014-24. Mr. Grace, please.
Thank you. As council is familiar, yearly we get the request for delegations, and council may want to discuss and advise us on what delegations they'd like to submit for the AMO. We do know a couple of our community partners and agencies that we've been working closely with on a couple projects that would like some input, so I'd like council to consider those.
Excellent. Questions of the report? Seeing none. Councillor Halleroux, I do have a resolution I'll read out for you here, and then make sure you want to move that. That the Council of Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receives staff report C-014-24 as information, and that council advise the clerk of the desired delegation request for the 2024 AMO conference no later than the end of day on June 6th. And further, that the clerk be directed to compile council's delegation request to be submitted to the attention of the province no later than 5 p.m. on Friday, June 7th. You're good to move that, Councillor Halleroux?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. And second by Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens? Yes. Discussion on that. Councillor Hughes, please.
Which ones are we going to ask for? Which ministry should we be looking at discussing with? I'd like to recommend the Education, Ministry of Education, and then the Ministry of, what was the other one? Goodness gracious. Health, Ministry of Health as well.
Excellent. Well, I certainly have till June 6th, though. If there is some tonight, make sure you get those in writing to the clerk, and then they can make sure that our staff will get those in for consideration. And we don't always get what we want, but we've been pretty lucky so far in the past. So if there is any ones that, if you can give a synopsis of why, that's always helpful as well. But we do have till June 6th. So yeah. Further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we'll now move on to OPP appointments, C-15-24. Mr. Graves, please.
Sure. As directed at the special meeting of council, the clerk has done great work to ensure that we get some applicants for the potential positions for the OPP Detachment Board, and council can consider those. I'll let the clerk speak to that in a second, but I also want to point out that there has been a minor hiccup with the legislation that was passed by the province, and the province changed the detachment boards to no longer be local boards, and so they're no longer covered under their normal insurance. So the boards are having difficulty finding insurance and or getting affordable insurance. We are attempting, we've confirmed with our insurer that the board is not technically covered under our insurance right now, but we are looking at the potential option of another insurer to see if it's viable or affordable. In the meantime, the OAPSB has recommended that no police service board meetings be held until the insurance issue is resolved. I suspect that they're likely going to, in some way or another, change the legislation, and when they do that, it may mean a minor change. But in the meantime, we've been requested to continue to try to make appointments to the boards, and I don't know if the clerk has anything more to expand on.
No, that was a great summary again, Michael. Thank you. I'll just state we did receive 10 applications during the 2-week recruitment period, so we're pretty pleased with the number of individuals who have shown interest in being appointed as a community representative to that board. And just to reiterate what Michael said, kind of the 11th hour, we've received this update from the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards with respect to insurance. So again, want to just say that we advise to keep appointing individuals to the board. They can then get their police record check, complete the mandatory roles and responsibility training. It gives the board a little bit more breathing room to get this done and prepare for the assembling as a board and taking on those responsibilities. The one thing that Michael didn't touch on that I'll state, this is just kind of looking at what could happen. So the legislation may be changed so that the boards are now considered or will be considered local boards once again. I suspect because of this delay, they may also move back that annual report deadline from June because a lot of these boards have not been able to meet. So really hard to ask them to create a report when they can't legally meet.
Questions of the report? Councillor Hughes.
Great report, and it's great to see the applications for community representatives. So with that in mind, I've actually got a motion I'd like to propose before we read the motion that is attached to the report. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll review and select the top 4 candidates for the community reps on the OPP Detachment Board, and that Council, in full participation in the in-person interviews, to select the 2 applicants to be appointed to the Detachment Board, and that in-person interviews will be completed at a special meeting of council or at the regular meeting of council June the 10th, 2024.
Can you make sure the clerk has a copy of that? Perfect. And as the mover, would you like to speak to that motion?
Yes. As I stated earlier, reading through the applications and the resumes of all the people that applied, it is a great caliber, a high caliber of people who have applied, which is great to see the community engagement of people who would like to become part of this committee, this board. And with that, I think we should, as a council, interview these people in person just to get a better feel for them, because we are paying them. We want to have the best people put on this board that are going to bring forward everything that the community wants in a timely manner with the police services.
Further discussion? Seeing none, I do support that. There was a lot of great candidates. There's 10, so that's a really good turnout. It's hard to get a feel for someone just based off papers. People definitely interview differently. The same process that we used when we went through our Earth Hydro Board representative, and we had great success with that. So I can support that of going forward. Again, I'll ask for any further comments. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we will continue on. Are there any further questions of the report? Seeing none, then I will turn to Councillor Van Koon-Bosens, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, excuse me. Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson that council now to go into a closed meeting at 6:37 p.m. under Section 239 2B of the Municipal Act as amended to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, the OPP detachment board applications, consideration and deliberation.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So council will now head to the GC. Council has finished their closed session, and we will now rise and report, and I'll turn to Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hudson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report C-015-24 as information, and that Council requests staff arrange interviews with the following
Sorry, just to interrupt. Sorry, I forgot. We just want to make sure our online participants are back, so we'll just... Okay, we have quorum, we're back, and please reread that now that everybody's in attendance, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hudson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report C-015-24 as information, and that Council requests staff arrange interviews with the following applicants: Taj Bra, Scott Davis, Brent Tree, Patricia Marshall.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will move on to C-016-24. Oh, it's 7 o'clock. How about that? Time flies. So we will now go into public meeting for a minor variance application. And okay. So I now, we need to go into, Member Wilson, I believe you have a resolution to go into the Committee of Adjustment, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Member Hudson, the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll go into Committee of Adjustment meeting to consider the following minor variance application: A-01-24, 223 Clarke Road East, applicant Clarke Commercial Shopping Center, Inc.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Oh, we are now in the Committee of Adjustment. I do now declare the Committee of Adjustment meeting to be open. The Committee of Adjustment is also authorized to consider applications for minor variances from the Town of Ingersoll zoning bylaw under Section 45 of the Planning Act. This meeting is being constituted as a meeting under Section 45-6 of the Act for the purpose of receiving public input on the requested minor variance, which will be considered this evening by the planner and the Committee of Adjustment before a decision on the application is made at a future meeting of the committee. We ask anyone in attendance at this meeting who wishes to receive the committee's decision on the application being considered to sign the attendance record on the table outside the council chambers. Anyone attending virtually is to submit a written request to the town clerk, danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. Does any member of the Committee of Adjustment have a conflict of interest on the application being heard this evening? Seeing none. The application to be heard concerns A-01-24-223 Clarke Road East, Clarke Commercial Shopping Center, Inc. Has the Secretary of the Committee received any additional correspondence on the application that is not noted on the agenda?
I have not.
Thank you. I now request Planner Heather Sinclair to provide an overview of the application and explanation of the requested minor variance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I can request plate 3 of the staff report too. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So as we get that going, the application on tonight's agenda has been requested to facilitate the construction of a commercial plaza on the subject lands, which will contain a range of commercial rental spaces, including a 32,000 square foot food store, a 10,000 square foot retail store, a bank of 5 commercial rental spaces, ranging from 1,600 square feet to 950 square feet, and a 4,400 square foot eating establishment with a drive-through window. Yes, it is. Thank you. All served by a new parking lot with entrances off of Hollingshead Road and Clarke Road. So just to recap that, the retail store, the proposed food store, a bank of retail commercial uses, and a proposed eating establishment with a drive-through window on the west side of the property. The variances required to facilitate the proposed design include a reduction to the loading space requirements for the bank of retail rental uses on the east side of the property, a reduction to the required number of parking spaces from 244 spaces to 200, a reduction to the front yard depth from 7.5 meters or 24.6 feet to 5.3 meters or 17.3 feet along Hollingshead Road, a reduction to the exterior side yard width from 7.5 meters or 2.9 meters along Clarke Road, and a reduction to the minimum required landscaped open space provisions from 15% lot area to 9%. And for committee's information.
Sorry to interrupt. We're just getting some feedback. Could we have... Oh, perfect. If you're online, if you could mute just to make sure that we don't get your feedback. Thank you. If you'd like to continue, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for committee's information, correspondence was received late this afternoon from the applicants indicating that they had miscalculated their gross leasable floor area requirements, which would result in a reduction to the required number of parking spaces from 244 to 227, but this has yet to be reviewed by staff. Also, the initial application for minor variance included a request to reduce the required number of drive-through vehicle queuing spaces for the eating establishment on the west side of the property, but the applicants have since provided an updated site plan that does show a compliant drive-through arrangement, and this request is no longer applicable. The property is currently vacant, and it is located on the northeast corner of Hollingshead Road and Clarke Road, and it's approximately 4.3 acres in size. The property was recently severed from the lands to the east to facilitate the proposed development, and town staff are in the process of reviewing the proposal under the town's site plan approval process. And as part of that process, the applicants have submitted a number of technical studies, including a traffic impact study, a noise study, a functional servicing report, a parking report, and an environmental assessment that will be reviewed and peer-reviewed as part of that process. The property is designated as service commercial in the county's official plan, which permits a broad range of commercial uses that for the most part aren't suitable to be located in the downtown core. And generally, the service commercial designation is intended for development to cater to large amounts of vehicle traffic and single-purpose shopping trips. The uses proposed for the subject land at this time are consistent with the uses intended for lands designated as service commercial. And a site-specific policy does apply to the subject property, which limits the gross leasable floor area for any development on the subject lands based on a previously undertaken market impact analysis, which is broken down in detail in the staff report. The property is zoned as highway commercial, special highway commercial HC-10 in the zoning bylaw, which is a site-specific zone that also applies to the lands to the north and east. And this site-specific zoning was implemented through a decision of the Ontario Municipal Board in 2012, which also implemented the site-specific official plan policies for the property. Additional variances have been requested from the general provisions of the zoning bylaw to reduce the loading space requirements for commercial uses. Specifically, Section 5.11 of the zoning bylaw states that loading spaces must be provided on commercial lands where the gross floor area exceeds 350 square meters, and loading spaces must be a minimum of 9 meters by 3.5 meters in size. And based on the commercial uses proposed, 5 loading spaces would be required to serve the development. So that would include 1 loading space for the CRU 1 bank of uses on the east side of the property, 1 loading space for the commercial retail use on the northwest side of the property, 2 loading spaces for the proposed food store, and 1 loading space for the proposed restaurant. So at this time, the applicant has not shown a compliant loading space for the bank of rental units on the east side of the property, and that is what the variance is required for. No comments from the public have been received to date, And a report with comments from staff and a planning recommendation will be provided at a subsequent meeting once staff have had an opportunity to review the technical studies and the peer review reports in detail and the site plan process has advanced. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the applicant or the representative have any comments or anything to say concerning the application?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Paul Kitson, VP of Planning and Development with Westel Corp. We are the applicant for this development. We did prepare a small presentation. However, I know Heather done such a good job presenting on the application. I could share my screen to walk you guys through. Maybe just a few minutes, if that's okay with you.
Yep, that's up to you if you'd like to continue with that, and we certainly can accommodate that.
Okay. Let me try to share my screen here. Would someone need to give me access?
Yep. We're just going to arrange the technical items here. We're just having a little bit of feedback, so just bear with us here and we will make sure that you get to present.
Sure.
Okay. Yes, and we are having a little bit of trouble hearing you, so if you could either raise your microphone level or talk a little louder, that would be helpful as well. We want to make sure that your comments are recorded.
Sure, sounds good.
Okay. I believe you'll be able to share your screen now, sir. Excellent. I can confirm that we're seeing your presentation. So.
Okay. So as Heather mentioned, we are proposing a development at the corner of Clarke Road and Hollinshead Road. At the moment, we have 3 buildings with some proposed national tenants. National tenants from the likes of Metro, Dollarama, McDonald's, as well as a few other smaller commercial uses on the site. We have 5 variances that we're requesting, as already outlined by Heather. One of the changes included the reduction of the number of parking spaces from 244 to 226. I know we'll have a chance to go through that in more detail with planning staff. Reduction in the loading space required, reduction in the setbacks, and in the landscaped area for the site. This slide gives an indication of some of our other commercial properties where of a similar size to the small commercial unit that we're requesting that change from for the loading. It shows that we do not, for those sites, we don't have any loading at all for those sites. However, we are proposing a small change in the loading from 9 by 3.5 to 5 by 4. So we deem it minor in nature, given that typically for commercial buildings of this size and for multiple uses, we wouldn't typically have a loading space. So that's for a loading space. This slide, it's for the parking reduction from 226 to 200 stalls. What you're showing here, it's a unit layouts for our Metro building and Dollarama building. At the time when we had submitted our initial minor variance application, we did have the full breakdown that showed what areas were excluded, typically excluded from the gross floor area. And we have it here shown. We'll go through this in more detail with staff. However, what that change allowed is a reduction from 244 stalls to 226. What we're requesting is, we consider it a small change. It's a reduction or a change from 1 space per 20 square meters to 1 space per 23 square meters. That's a difference between 226 stalls that's required to what we're proposing as the 200 stalls. In some of the other municipalities that we not only work with, but that we have investigated, some of those parking rates change from 1 space per 30 or 1 space per 25 to as high as 1 space per 50. And there's several examples where we believe what we're proposing is deemed to be feasible. With regards to the setbacks, it's a change from 7.5 on the front and side or side yard setback to 5.3 and to 2.9. What this allows is that as we try to activate streetscapes where we try to position buildings close to sidewalks, what we're finding is that typically municipalities are more receptive to some of these variances because it helps to activate the streetscape. In addition, it also helps to allow a more functional site. So where we're asking for a parking variance, it helps us to maximize the parking on the site. Or other variance that we're requesting is a change in the landscape area from 15% to 9%. And as you know, you all are familiar with the area. There is a lot of green space in this area that we believe that even though we're requesting this variance, we consider it small in nature given the location and the amount of landscaping and parks, green space that's typically in the area. Did a number of studies. We're continuing to refine some of these studies, and we'll be resubmitting again to the town. And we're at the stage in our project where our site is almost fully leased. And we have a lot of national tenants. Some of these national tenants, if we're not able to deliver, they may back out on us. And so we're excited about the development. We believe it will really benefit the community. We believe it will advance some of the strategic visions of the town of Ingersoll and the county in creating a strong, complete community. So thank you. Open it up for questions.
Thank you very much. I will now open the meeting to comments from the public. This portion of the meeting provides the one opportunity for individuals to speak to the application and have their comments considered by the planner and committee of adjustment before the report and recommendation on the requested minor variance is brought forward at a subsequent meeting. Any person attending who wishes to provide comments in support or opposition to the application may do so now. Please approach the lectern and state your name and address for the public record. Is there anybody who'd like to speak to the application? Welcome.
Hello, my name is Ryan Kerrigan. I live on 22 Moulton Court, here in Ingersoll, Ontario. I just had a question. I'm not sure, where is this minor variance happening? Yeah.
We'll turn that to the planner.
Mr. Planner.
Through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps if we can get plate 3 of the staff report back up, I can just go over those again in a little more detail. It is difficult to see the site plan on the screen, I understand. Thank you. So what we're looking at is a reduction to the front yard depth. Typically, the zoning bylaw requires 7.5 meters of setback. But the applicants are proposing 5.3 meters between the proposed eating establishment and the front lot line here. Typically, the zoning bylaw requires 7.5 meters of exterior side yard, which would be along Clarke Street in this instance, and instead they're proposing 2.9 meters. So that's a reduction to the exterior side yard setback. They're proposing a reduction to the required number of parking spaces on site, as well as the loading space. And they are also proposing a reduction to the percentage of the property that's required to be landscaped open space from 15% to 9% of the lot area. I think that's all of them.
Mr. Graves?
Yeah, and all of that, I'd like to point out, is occurring at 223 Clarke Road East on the corner of Clarke and Hollingshead.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak to the application? Seeing none, do we have anybody online who would like to speak to the application? Not seeing anyone. So, members of the Committee of Adjustment now have the opportunity to ask any questions about the application. However, they may not offer any comments at this time. Other questions from the committee? Member Use, please.
Thank you, Chair. In regards to the relief from the minimum required landscaping open space area, I'm not seeing too much of, if you want to call it, green space within all of this, other than on, I guess, on the bordering of the Hollinghead Road and then Clarke Road. Is that basically that reduction of that area there?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so majority of the proposed green space on the site would be bordering the subject lands. And then they do also appear to have small traffic islands throughout the parking lot that would also count towards that coverage calculation.
Please continue.
Thank you. Other communities, are they experience a similar reduction? I did notice what he'd said about other locations throughout this area, London, Port Elgin, Lucan. Are other municipalities in a similar open space requirement of that 15% similar to us, or have they been reducing that open space requirement?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, at this time, I can't speak to what other zoning bylaws would implement. I'm not familiar with those. But the intent of that landscaped open space provision is twofold. It's one, to provide greenery for aesthetic purposes around the site, and the other purpose of it is for stormwater retention on site. The applicant will be required to demonstrate to the satisfaction of the town that stormwater is sufficiently controlled on site. So what percentage of that is accounted for in the landscaped open space it would be up to the engineers to review, and as long as they're satisfied with it, we don't like to see the green space reduced, but if the engineers have no issue with it from a stormwater perspective, it may be something that could be considered by staff.
Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, please.
If you had more, you could continue. Through you to our planner. All the requested variances, I see them a lot, but the loading space requirement is kind of hidden home for me in the respect that how else would they need to reduce the size of their buildings then to be able to actually meet the requirements and not have so many variances? Is that, am I kind of going in the right direction? I don't know where else the space comes from, but because, I mean, all of these things are the fact that the buildings are too big in that respect then. Okay. Sorry, I can see the head nod, and that's what I just needed that. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, you had a further question?
Yes, actually, this one, I don't know if Matt, our engineer, can answer the question. Basically, follow up with the green spaces to the in that area in regards to the stormwater management.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. There's the stormwater management consideration that can be accommodated through stormwater management reports and how it will work together to meet the outflow rates that are available for the site. And most sites, a solution can be brought up. Another consideration with the green spaces, they're often also used for permanent or temporary snow storage for seasonally where that snow is going to be stored until it can be hauled away. So as long as the total accommodation of the site can be met through stormwater management, snow storage, green space ability, then it can be sufficiently accommodated. So, as Heather said, though, we'll see how the further site plans shake out with how all these other items can be accommodated and whether that green space reduction would be sufficient if all other things considered can be accommodated.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? I have a couple. The application says it's reduction from 244 down to 200, although the applicants had said on their item there's numbers of 226 given. It's confirmed. Can I confirm that the requirements, what the required number of spaces are?
It is of note that the subject lands already have a reduction to parking that was implemented through the site-specific zoning in 2012. That site-specific zoning that was implemented in 2012 applied a general parking standard to the entirety of the site for one space for every 20 square meters of gross leasable commercial floor area. And it provided a definition of gross leasable commercial floor area to exclude all of to basically only include tenant occupancy areas. So it did exclude things like basements, mezzanines, upper floors, and washrooms, areas like that from the overall parking calculation. So I believe what has happened is the applicant has now excluded those areas from their gross floor area calculation, which they hadn't done previously. So we just got that requested update today, and staff have not yet had an opportunity to review to determine whether we concur with that calculation.
Okay, thank you. And that leads to my next question. There is a OMB decision on this property that has site-specific zoning attached to it. What is what is the committee's responsibility to adhere to that OMB decision? Sorry, thank you.
That's a good question. We believe this can go through a planning process and can modify that original OMB decision, but that doesn't mean that somebody couldn't appeal that. And I don't know if Heather's got anything to follow up on that, but.
No, I agree. That decision from the OMB was implemented based on a market impact study that was done in 2012. So it's reasonable to assume that there have been changes to the town's market, to the retail market throughout the town. So I think that it's not inappropriate for the committee to make a decision on that existing decision.
And further to that, has there been an updated market study on this property, or is it still based off the one that was the OMB decision was based off of?
It is still based off the previous decision.
Thank you. And is this application based off an agreed upon site plan, like a finished site plan process, that these are the items that could not be agreed upon, or is that an ongoing process?
That process is not completed, but it's nearing the end. And so they're getting towards the end where it looks like they're not going to be able to accommodate these in a site plan. So that's why this application is here, so that you can try to decide how to handle that. It's possible that council could turn down some of these minor variances and they'd have to throw it back to the site plan committee to deal with the site appropriately.
Okay. And just one follow-up question as well. It does show that the front yard is onto Hollingshead. Is that road designated suitably for this type of development?
At this time, the town engineering staff is still working with the applicant to finalize the traffic arrangements, particularly with respect to some of the anticipated truck traffic that would be utilizing the site. And the town has had the is having the traffic impact study peer reviewed. So we are continuing to move down that review road right now, but we don't have any of the final peer review comments at this time.
Just to follow up on that, just to clarify how the front yard is considered. The address is on Clarke Road, but they're asking for front yard on. How is that decided with an application? Is that up to the applicant to put into approval, or is that for is that set out in the planning documents?
That's established in the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw provides that the shortest lot line that abuts a road on a corner lot is considered the frontage, regardless of how the building itself might be oriented.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Are there any further questions from the committee? Seeing none. Okay, if there are no further comments or questions, then the public meeting for this application is concluded. I will ask if there's one last time, if there's anybody who would like to say anything else for the application. Seeing none, the application will now be scheduled to come before a committee of adjustment at a subsequent meeting during which the planner's report and recommendation will be considered and a decision will be made. We will now consider the resolution for this application, which is to receive. Member Hudson, please.
Thank you, through you. Moved by myself, seconded by Member Use, that the Town of Ingersoll Committee of Adjustment receive report number CP 2024-142 as information.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Member Use, to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment, please.
Yes, thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Yu, seconded by Councillor Hallerow, that the Council of the Corporation Town of Ingersoll, nope, sorry, wrong one. Apologies. So I'm looking for number 16. There it is right there. Moved by Member Use, seconded by Member Hallerow, that the Committee of Adjustment meeting now be adjourned and that the May 13, 2024 regular meeting of Council come back into order.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we'll now go to delegations and presentations. We have Jen Story for Stevenson Children's Camp, please. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for having me tonight. My name is Jen Story, and I've been working alongside Ned Burwell for a fundraiser to help raise money for the Stevenson's Camp. I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to chat about the camp and the fundraiser that we will be having on June 16th. What is the Stevenson Camp and how do they serve and benefit our community? They offer fully subsidized overnight camping where all of the campers are referred by organizations such as Children's Aid, Thames Valley District School Boards, and all sorts of other social service agents within our community. They refer the parents to the camp for their children to attend. The camp asks the families to pay $25 or less per week for their child. This is why we require third-party referrals. This way the parents are able to come without a barrier of having to provide financial situation or fill out applications. This is the rough estimate of the kids that run through this program is 96 children for every 8 weeks during the summer. This is totaling 768 children. Out of these 768 children, 30% or 240 children are families from Ingersoll. And this is just a little bit about the fundraiser that we are having. So we're anticipating a diverse array of around 100 vendors for this event, each offering unique experiences, from intuitive readings and healings to vendors selling one-of-a-kind handmade gifts. The event promises a rich and varied experience. We also have some local food vendors, 5 talented musicians to provide a delightful ambience for the day. The Stevenson's Children's Camp is offering free camp for the kids at the event so that parents bringing their children can enjoy the event. As a promotion for the event, we will be hosted on Rogers TV in Woodstock and London, Heart FM, Country FM, and social media. We have given a presentation to Thames Valley Centre Council as well as Woodstock City Council. We have organically reached over 30,000 people with a few social media posts on this event so far. We're planning to do some paid advertising for the event, expecting to reach 100,000 plus with our advertising. We invite our sponsors to come and set up free booths at the event. We will have space to put up banners for the sponsors. At the heart of the event, in the deep appreciation of sponsors, after the event, we will be dedicating several social media posts and highlighting their contributions. As someone who's been organizing fundraisers for over 20 years, I understand immensely the value of acknowledging sponsorship, and it plays a critical role in our success. We have a lofty goal of raising $300,000 for the Stevenson's Children's Camp. So any amount of money, is big or small, would be received, getting us closer to our goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions of the presentation? Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens.
Hey, Jen, thanks for coming out. It's so good to hear about a fundraiser for Stevenson, and definitely I will be personally helping to support that in some way, shape, or form. But my question is, again, because your one stat came through pretty quick, what is the percentage of children that attend Stevenson from Ingersoll?
So the numbers for that are there's 768 children over an 8-week period.
Yep.
Out of those 768 children, 30% or 240 children are families of Ingersoll. And as I said, that's all coming through Thames Valley, so Children's Aid. It's all coming through for families who, quite honestly, wouldn't be able to do it unless they had that backing.
If I may. That is a very high statistic, and I commend you and Ned and your committee for what you're doing. I'm going to put it out there that I haven't seen anything come past Kiwanis yet, and I would suggest that something come past us. How's that sound, okay?
I will be coming.
I mean, we're one of the community organizations who do help support kids going to camp, and I'm not sure what this council will do, but I would definitely be for supporting in some way, shape, or form this event that's going on. I think it's very worthwhile, especially when 30% are coming from our community and going there. And it $25 is amazing subsidy cost for those parents that really can't afford it. And what an amazing thing for the kids to go through.
Absolutely.
So
thank you very much.
thank you for being here, Jen.
That. Anybody else?
Councillor Hughes.
When and where is your function going to be?
So it's going to be at the actual Stevenson camp, just on Gore Road, and it is on Father's Day, so it's on June 16th. It's actually that whole weekend, so it's all day Saturday and Sunday. So over the course of the 2 days, we'll have local food vendors from town. We'll have local musicians from town. So they will be out and they'll be serving food. It'll be a full day, morning to evening for 2 days.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Halleru, please.
Hi. Well, nice presentation, and nice to hear that kids are getting a chance to do this regardless of affordability. What are the ages of the kids that would normally take the camp?
I believe their age is 5 to 13. I would have to double check that for sure. I don't honestly know the bottom line for the age, but I can absolutely look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the community is aware that you extend that wide range of ages. Some of the questions we'll ask are some of the questions the community has asked. So hopefully publicly more people get to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Hughes.
How would people donate?
So you can make donations directly. So any checks, anything that's being donated, sponsors, are all being directly made to the Stevenson's Children's Camp. It's a direct donation. We're hoping that anybody that can't donate directly to them, myself or Ned, would be more than happy to come out and get the donations. That is fine, and bring them to the Stevenson's Camp. But any checks, donations would be directed to the Stevenson's Children's Camp.
Is there an e-transfer option?
There is, and I will get you the email because I don't have that with me.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thanks.
Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens.
I found the information for you, Jen. It's 7 to 16 years old.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah, I just went to their website, so
thank you.
I wanted to get that message out there because I think it's important.
And I know they did say that a lot of their older kids that come there end up coming there a couple years in a row, and they go back to be counselors. So they're volunteering their time as well because it's impacted their lives so much.
Absolutely. It's great.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The only thing I would do, I know we do have it, but make sure that you give the contact information to the town staff, and that way if anybody contacts the town, then they can pass that on and make sure that it gets.
Absolutely. I believe that Ned's away right now. I believe that he's got something that I'll get emailed out maybe to Danielle. Would that be okay? And then I'll get that sent out right away tomorrow.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
Too.
You too, Jen.
Councillor Hallerou, I have a motion here that says that the Council of Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive as information the presentation from Jen Story concerning the Stevenson Children's Camp charity event. Would you be comfortable moving that?
Yes, sir. Thank
Is there a
you.
seconder for that? Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens? Yes, you are. Thank you. Discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Would council like to continue with our special staff reports, or are they interested in taking a 5-minute break? Yep. Is there a motion for that? Moved by Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, seconded by Councillor Hughes. Council will do hold a 5-minute recess. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll reconvene around 7:50, please. Back to order, and we will now go to C-016-24, Cannabis Policy Statement. Mr. Graves.
And given that I've been stealing the clerk's thunder all night, I'm going to turn it directly over to the clerk.
Thank you. So this report provides council with a draft retail cannabis store policy statement in response to the decision to opt in and allow retail cannabis sales in the town of Ingersoll as of council's decision on April 8th of this year. So the guidelines are drafted in alignment with AMO's template and are intended to be used to respond to proposals for stores in locations deemed to be sensitive by council. As members will note, the only sensitive area currently identified in the policy is the Fusion Youth Center, as this was a topic that came up when the initial staff report was considered last month. However, the policy is amendable and can be updated if additional areas are identified by council, so that would be a decision of council to make in the future. It should be noted that since council lifted its prohibition, the AGCO has received 2 retail applications that are currently in their public comment period. However, neither location is within the 100-meter radius of the Fusion Youth Center, and thus, per the policy attached to the report, no formal response from the town would be warranted in these instances. Outside of that, as we discussed at the last meeting, these policy statements and kind of response procedures are great in theory. We don't really have any concrete evidence from the AGCO that they actually take them into consideration. But ultimately, I think it's a good tool to at least put council's formal comments to the AGCO in response to these applications. And so I would still suggest going forward with it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions of the report? Seeing none. Councillor Van Koen-Bosens.
I just want to thank staff for bringing forward, and I firmly believe that we should be sending that site through, and at least doing what we can to make sure that we try to protect the youth at Fusion. So I will be in favor of us going forward with that, and thank you to staff for bringing forward what's already there. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Hudson, please.
Thank you. Through you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Staff Report C-016-24 as information, and that Council approve and adopt the proposed retail cannabis policy statement as attached to the report.
Discussion. Seeing none. I will also encourage the public. I agree with the policy. I think that it's very non-administratively burdened because it's very clear about where they are. If the public is wanting to know about applications, they can go on the AGCO website and they can look up Ingersoll there through their process, and if they're interested in where those items are, and if they want to put in comments based off those applications, they can do that. So, further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will now go to CS-012-24, Budget Variance Report. Mr. Grace, please.
Yes, I'm going to turn this one directly over to Kyle.
Thank you, Mr. Graves, and good evening, Council. So the report you have in front of you is about some budget surpluses that have been realized in the Community Services Department through various projects that we've tendered this year. Through the process of getting budget pricing in August, we've actually had some favorable tenders come back that have been under budget that has resulted in about $145,000 surplus to date. And looking at what items we could potentially look at doing going forward, we had the pool filtration system assessed by Acapulco Pools, and it's noted in the life cycle that the filter should be replaced in 2026. But realizing the surplus, we looked at potentially doing it this year with the surplus funds to be able to get that project out of the way and save ourselves future money in 2026. While also not having a closure in 2026 to change over those filters. We can incorporate it all as the closure now and get all those items done. I have Acapulco Pools here Bernie and Greg to make a presentation about the filters themselves that can filter down to 1 micron, which is much higher standard than what we receive right now. It also reduces in water quality, but I will let Bernie and Greg speak more to the filters themselves. And thank you, Bernie and Greg, for waiting around.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us. I'm Bernie Gall from Acapulco Pools, and this is Greg Keller. We have done some work at your pool, and we've looked at your filtration system, and your filters are over 20 years old. They're definitely at the end of their lifespan. Parts are no longer available for that type of filter. That company's been out of business for over 10 years now. And we have recommended what is called a regenerative sand filter, a regenerative filter system, rather than what you have now is called a high-rate sand filter. And the advantages, the regenerative filter is relatively new technology. It's been around for over 20 years now, and virtually 90% of the new facilities are all using regenerative filters today. And one of the advantages of regenerative filter is that you have a water savings of about 90%, chemical and fuel savings of 30%, and energy savings of 50% over the system that you currently have. You know, the technology you have now has been around for, you know, I'm not even sure exactly how many years, but since, you know, public swimming pools have been constructed, really. And it hasn't changed until about 20 years ago. And the other advantage of this filter is it will clean the water to what they call 1 micron in size, whereas the filter you have now cleans it to 50 microns. I mean, there's a big difference. And this filter uses less energy, less water, less chemicals, because every time you clean your filter now, which is about once a week, you're going to lose thousands of gallons of water, which means heated water, chemically treated water. So we're recommending this regenerative filter system. And the other advantage of this system is cryptosporidium is becoming a real problem in swimming pools. In the US, there were over 750,000 cases of people that were infected with cryptosporidium, which really causes you to have diarrhea. If you ingest water from a swimming pool, if somebody pooped in the water, and if somebody had a loose bowel, you get millions and millions of these germs in the water, and it only takes 10 of those germs for you to get diarrhea. So it's really important to remove this from your pool. It's critical. And the other thing we're proposing is to include what they call a VFD, a variable frequency drive, which means right now you have a 15 or 20 horsepower pump, and the pump is sized to push water through a dirty filter. But when the filter is clean, you don't need, say, 20 horsepower. You may only need 7 horsepower. But you have a 20 horsepower motor. You're running 20 horsepower, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Whereas with a VFD, variable frequency drive, as the filter gets dirtier, the motor starts to speed up, and when the filter's dirty, it'll eventually be to 20 horsepower. Then you clean the filter, which will be maybe once a month now, not every week like you're doing currently. Therefore, you have huge savings. So to get the same water quality in your pool that you have now compared to the new filter we're recommending, you have 2 tanks now. You need 14 similar sized tanks in that room to get the same water quality. So we are recommending this filter, and if you have any questions, we've got some pictures here, if we can maybe pass it along.
Some brochures.
Show it through if you want to have a peek at them.
And also a list of where we've installed these already and projects that are currently under construction.
Yeah, the City of London, for example, has been, I think they put the first one in 2012, and every new pool since then, and every renovated pool has got a regenerative filter.
Yeah, the regens are sort of the green filter, you could say, as well, of the future. Sand filters are, like Bertie said, sort of horse and buggy technology, and, you know, this is the way of the future, and it'll definitely reduce your, like, the upfront it is a little more expensive than the sand filters, but long-term, this is gonna actually be cheaper and give you better water quality. So it really is a win for everyone and the environment too.
I mean, there was also discussion of adding what they call an ultraviolet unit to your pool, which will disable cryptosporidium. It doesn't remove it, it just disables it. But when you take the cost of replacing the filters you have with the same filters and the ultraviolet, you're almost spending more money than having one filter that does both of those things. Like, you know, we see so many clients, they keep adding stuff to the pool to get better water quality, adding. Well, no, don't add all those things, just put a proper filter in.
Yeah.
And that will solve a lot of your issues.
The UV system is constant expenditures as well, with replacing the bulbs and quartz tubes over the years. So why not just get a filter that does it all, and in the long run will, over the years, like, constantly provide better water quality, save you got your maintenance guys time, save the water and electricity. It's really is just honestly more pros than cons.
And I do want to point out, there is a filter media you have to add to this filter. It's called perlite, but you're going to spend maybe $300, $350 a year for perlite. And it's the perlite that does all the filtration. The water goes through this perlite.
And this system has a vacuum transfer system that pulls it from the bag right into the filter. So it's really easy for the maintenance staff. They're not like dumping bags up high into a tank or something. It's really easy.
Perfect.
And the system's all automatic too. When you have to clean the filter, press a button, it does it all by itself. There's really no work for your operator, which is good. Any questions?
Councillor Van Koopmans, please.
So the current filter that we have has been 20-plus years. How long does this filter then last for?
Well, they've been making them for 20 years. The first one we installed was 2012. And to date, we have not had to open up a filter to do any maintenance on the inside. Like, it has hundreds of tubes that are hanging from the top of the filter. We have not opened one filter yet. So that's a good sign. And the inside of the filter is coated with rubber, comes with a 10-year warranty, and so the rubber prevents any corrosion or anything from on the steel filter tank. The filter tank also has to, what they do every day, the filter bumps, and that's what's called regenerative. In other words, it's got a shock absorber on it, and it shakes all these tubes that are in the tank to remove all the perlite. It falls to the bottom, and then you regenerate it, the same filter media, but you just replace it on the tubes. So that's why they call it a regenerative filter.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Hughes, please.
Actually, I've got a couple of questions. First of all, Kyle, have you done an ROI on what the savings would be? I know they threw some numbers out, 50%, 30%. Has there been any, are you gentlemen able to provide
Yes,
with?
we can provide that information.
You can provide that information?
Not yet.
We can do that. We can get the manufacturer to provide that.
Okay, if you could, that'd be great.
They've been doing this for years, and they've updated the numbers to make sure they're correct. And they're not the same everywhere. For example, if you're in Phoenix, Arizona, the cost of water is up here, whereas our water is quite cheap here, but we will give you those numbers. We can do that very quickly.
That'd be great. And my second question is, because I'm going to key on something you had said. You said there's more pros than cons. What are the cons?
Well, just the upfront cost is more than sand filters, but really it will be paid back, you know, in no time. Every situation, every pool is different, but over time it will be paid back, and, you know, so really.
Okay.
That's the only
And the energy savings is the big thing now. I mean, every job, all new projects we're doing now.
Net zero.
Everyone wants to go what they call net zero.
Yes.
And we're getting really close.
And that's why I was asking about the return on investment.
Yeah.
It was because of that. We can throw numbers around all day long, right? It's proofs in the pudding.
Yes.
So,
And energy costs we know are only going up, they're not going down.
precisely. Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Our pleasure.
Councillor Halleru, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question for Kyle. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. What was it that we replaced last year or this January that we approved for replacement? Is it the same filter?
So last year, we would have replaced the sand in the sand filter, but the previous report I would have done would have been about the pump.
Yeah, the pump. Okay, so this is for the filter that has the sand we're talking
Yes.
about. Okay. Thank you.
We have two big sand filters right now, essentially. This would also take up a lot less space in the filtration room, giving us more space for storage, and that's a pretty tight room as it is now. So the regenerative filters take up much less space than what our two sand filters will.
We have some brochures and like the list of completed projects and projects that are currently under construction. I can also send that digitally to Kyle to share with you as well.
Excellent. Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kyle, was there anything else you'd like to highlight in your report? Okay. I just have a question. I don't see it in here, but would this be a request to sole source this, or would it have to go to RFP as well?
I keep shutting my mic off without forgetting, or I keep forgetting to shut my mic off. So we likely would have to go through the procurement process. The regenerative filter is very specific to manufacturers, so we likely are going to be able to get a couple of quotes, but I don't know if we'd be able to go through the traditional RFP process.
Okay.
Because it's a specific material, or it's a specific filter.
And then the other question I have around is the current pump that we do have. It's going to be converted to a VFD, or is it a new pump?
Being converted.
Converted. Okay.
We're adding VFD to the existing pump.
Okay. Okay.
There's no reason to change the pump at this point in time.
Okay. Perfect. Any further questions or before we have a resolution on this? I will ask Councillor Hughes then, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Halleru, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report CS-012-24 as information, and that Council approves the purchase of the purchase and installation of the Neptune Benson Defender regenerative filter using surplus funds realized through the 2024 capital expenditures.
Discussion. I'll say is it's always good to have savings. This is something we're seeing, is that the cost of things are coming down, which is a positive, and it allows us to use the taxpayers' money to do even more stuff and have a better quality. It's exciting to hear that not only are we going to not have to tax our individuals more for this particular item to get done, but it's actually going to be a better quality of water at the pool for the people who are using it, as well as the amount of energy that we're going to be saving. We were scheduling on probably doing that in 2026, but we'll have the benefit of that beforehand. I'm also very happy to hear in the report that this is all the major systems, and I'm sure Kyle is as well, that are being done, that are being replaced. And so hopefully it will give us some good usability and some efficiencies going forward, allow that asset management piece to take over to prepare for the next item 20 years from now, hopefully, or longer. We always like longer than that. So, but no, this is a positive. I certainly appreciate staff's work to be able to get those numbers down on the other items, and certainly to be able to use those funds to make the things better happen. Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we will now go on to item CS-013-24 MURC Timeline, and I will turn that over to Mr. Graves.
Thank you. As directed by council, staff are bringing forward a timeline that speaks to the development of the MURC site. This is a quite detailed timeline, and I appreciate all the work the staff have done to get to this point, to put this together. It's been a great team effort. One of the key inputs on this timeline will be hiring a project manager, and staff are already doing research on what that will take and what that will look like. If approval of this report comes forward tonight, we'll be actively pursuing that Once that gets going, I keep saying that this timeline is a very good first draft of that process, but the project manager will probably add even more detail to that. But this meets and puts us on track to develop this on the timeline that council had previously approved. And with that, I will turn it over to Kyle, because he probably has much more detail than I do to speak to.
Thank you, Michael. So yes, very exciting times for the town of Ingersoll that this timeline is in front of council and that we're proceeding forward with the projects. I want to thank my staff and a lot of town staff that came together to be able to make this possible. There's a lot in here, but it was great exercise even amongst staff to be able to get everything down on paper of what we would need to accomplish to be able to realize April 2026 being the construction target start date. Everything in this timeline is based on being able to start construction in April of 2026, and every date is based off that consideration. As Michael alluded to, the important milestones in here are important milestones as we sit here today. But as we hire a project manager and we work through the timeline, some of these things may change. They may happen in a different order than is intended here. But this was as much information as we could get together for council and the community to be able to show where we're at now and where we're headed with that key construction start date of April 2026. I have Simcoe here, Simcoe Refrigeration here to give a report on some potential energy efficiencies with the new facility. Before I get to them, because I know that they're going to touch on some potential grant opportunities, the province has just announced, as alluded in my report, a new grant opportunity that will be $200 million over the next 3 years. It's at least a start. There's a huge infrastructure deficit in the province. As we've seen the last time that we applied for grants, there was over $10 billion in requests, and they only funded a small fraction of that. So the $200 million will at least help, but there is still a large deficit that needs to be accounted for in the province as recreation facilities continue to get older and the province continues to get bigger. So that demand will continue to exist, but it's good to note that there is grant opportunities on the horizon, and with what Simcoe Refrigeration is about to present, that could open some doors to some potential other grant opportunities as well. So with that said, I will have Simcoe Refrigeration come up and give their presentation on net zero or near net zero for the Ingersoll facility.
Thank you very much and welcome. I will just point out that I have met with our MPP, Ernie Hardeman, and have asked him to make sure that he has forward and all information regarding that grant opportunity to the town. And he's guaranteed that that will happen through staff. So it's good to have him at the table to try to make sure that we have all that information to make a successful grant.
Good evening. My name is Benoit Rodier. I work for Simcoe Refrigeration. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I'm responsible for our decarbonization and sustainability group. When we initiate discussion about your project, we introduce a concept towards a net zero rink, and we would like to present that tonight. So I'll leave it to my colleague, Jordan, to present you the concept.
Thank you. Great. Thank you for having us this evening. I'm very thankful to be able to speak with you all, and I know I've actually spoken with a couple of you at some of the trade shows, so it's a great opportunity. Just to kind of get started here. Oh, there we go. Just a quick introduction. So, as you all know, Simcoe's actually been around for over 100 years. So I've been with Simcoe, actually I should introduce myself a little bit more. My name's Jordan Dermo. I'm with the Decarbonization Group. And one of the things that I have been focusing on the last couple of years with Simcoe is going around to different communities across Canada, actually, and speaking with them about how to take their existing rinks from what they are to net zero or near net zero. And right now we're at an opportunity to bypass the retrofits and start from a place where we are not having to spend more money in the future. Do it right the first time. Do it right so that we are future-proofing your arena, future-proofing the heart of the community, our Canadian ice rinks, and making sure that you just have a sustainable community center that is as low carbon as we can get it. And also seeing what type of funding is available to help you get there as well. So with CIMCO being kind of a leader in thermal management, we have a lot of experience when it comes to ice rinks. Globally we've actually have constructed over 50% of the ice rinks. And we know that ice rinks are a large consumer, both electricity-wise and natural gas-wise, when it comes to municipalities. So what does net zero mean? In general, it just means that we are wanting to reduce emissions by at least 50% by 2030, as well as 80% by 2050. And it means that our economy is emitting no greenhouse gases. And what we do emit, we're offsetting these through environmental efforts and carbon capture. So when it comes to typical ice rinks, business as usual, we have two different systems that are essentially doing the exact same thing, but opposite of each other. So we have one system, our HVAC system, typically running off of natural gas that is generating heat, that is putting that into the building. The exact same time, we have our refrigeration system, which is removing heat. So we're using electricity to remove heat from that ice surface, to freeze that ice slab in order to create that ice, and then we're just emitting that into the atmosphere. So our ice rink is actually removing heat, getting rid of it for waste heat, and then HVAC is generating that. So when you look at kind of yesterday's design, we have, I don't know if you can see my mouse there, nope. We have our heating loads that are all over the building here. All of our change rooms, our offices, the gyms, thank you. The gyms, fitness centers, you've got our lobbies there. They all require heat. They also require fresh air. So there's going to be fresh air intake. We're going to have that exchange, which all requires the building to then process heat. So we went through and kind of made some general assumptions and did a building load heat load breakdown. So in general, again, we just kind of made some of these assumptions and then broke it down from our baseline annual emissions, and then approximate equipment budget. So here again, this is just kind of the bowl using our typical natural gas infrared heaters, using the lobby heat consumption with our annual emissions. So this one here was 10.3. You can see actually one thing to keep in mind too, that these typical rooftop units are needing to be replaced every 10 to 15 years. So this is stuff that needs to be kept in mind as well. You will notice if you're looking at the PowerPoint presentation that was sent earlier, if it's kind of out of place, this is an updated one. So then when we're looking at the heat load breakdown of the gym and fitness, you can see here it's about 12.1 tons of CO2. Again, every 10, 15 years, that has to be replaced. And that approximate budget is about 500,000. Again, these are just assumptions that we've made based off of our experience in the past. Heat load for just the change rooms. I'm just going to go through fast here. Our water heat load breakdown. So for every time that we're having to do those floods, as well as the snow melt pit. So every time that we are flooding the ice, we're putting that more heat load onto the ice. Our refrigeration system is now having to work harder. We're then having to melt that ice. We're adding more load to our system. We're using more heat. We're generating more heat. We're also using more electricity. Same thing with domestic hot water. Whenever we are using that facility, people are taking showers. We are using hot water to have those showers. So you can see here again, these are just breakdowns of our assumptions when it comes to kind of that approximate annual admissions, and then the budget that we would associate with each of those kind of systems there. Again, a breakdown of the fresh air requirements. So one thing that we don't actually have associated in our breakdown here is dehumidifiers. So there's a couple different ways that you can go, and when it comes to dehumidifiers, if you're going a natural gas route, it's hard to kind of figure out exactly how much natural gas it's using. So we have an estimate there, but there are also electric desiccant dehumidifiers. So we didn't put that in there, so I just wanted to take note that it is not, hasn't been accounted for in our emissions there. So an estimated budget again for yesterday's typical design for a refrigeration system, this is just, an HVAC system, is anywhere from about 1.25 to 1.35. And again, this is just for generating heat within the building. A lot of that equipment with the RTUs, they're going to have to be replaced within the next 10 to 15 years. So we've got to keep in mind that we have about 275,000 that you need to be making sure that you're budgeting for in the next 10 to 15 years. One thing to keep in mind for net zero with refrigeration, net zero over time, is that refrigeration emissions do play a role in getting our economy to net zero. So there are the Kigali Amendment as well as the Montreal Protocol that we're seeing phase outs in refrigerant emissions. And so a lot of these RTU units that are actually working right now, we're not going to be able to purchase the refrigerants for them in the future because the requirements for the GWPs for those RTUs are being lowered and lowered as we go. So there's another reason to really focus on future-proofing your refrigeration system. So using our estimations for the heat load, we put together kind of our natural gas consumption, our annual, what we assume will be the natural gas consumption annually in cubic meters. So based on those assumptions, we guesstimate that, and this is a very conservative guesstimate, that building will consume about 137,000 cubic meters of natural gas a year. That with 2022's average cost, so this is just base rate, would be about just over $35,000 a year. The cost per ton for the carbon tax on that in 2024 would be $21,000. That cost just on that consumption by 2034, before I meant to say 2024, is going to be $60,000. So it's something to also keep in mind when we're talking about escalating rates, is the carbon tax and how it is continuing to go up. In Ontario, we do not get charged carbon tax on our electricity rate. So here's kind of a breakdown over the next 16 years. So I do have 2024 in here as a starting rate, going up to 2040, but again, just to kind of give you that general idea. So based on that consumption and using about a 2% annual increase, we can expect to pay from 2024 to 2040 on carbon tax alone would be about $890,000, and then just on natural gas would be about $740,000. And then that's not even getting into the refrigeration plant. So a standard skid package refrigeration plant, about 100 tons, we'd be looking at anywhere from about 1.7 to 1.8 million, and that's not including the concrete slab. So again, these things add up. Total with HVAC, we're looking anywhere from about 2.95 to about 3.15. Again, these are just budget numbers that we're trying to paint that picture for you. So then putting it all together. So this is our ransom numbers for electrical consumption on that 100-ton plant. On average, a seasonal plant, again, we were a little bit conservative, using no heat reclaim, so not using any of that waste heat. Guesstimating it's running, say, about 4,000 hours a year. With the electrical consumption and then using no heat reclaim, we have a total spend on utilities from 2024 to 2040 at 1.8 million, and then total on carbon tax 890,000. So that's just kind of a big picture, thinking about how much it's going to cost just to operate this building if we just do our standard quo, how yesterday's arena would typically be put together. So then how can we utilize a refrigeration plant for net zero? So one thing that just blew my mind when I first kind of got into this industry, because I didn't really think about it when you go into a nice plant, is that for every one, just kind of simplify it, for every 1 kilowatt of energy that you put into your refrigeration plant, the waste byproduct is equivalent to 4 kilowatts of energy. So your refrigeration plant itself is a heat pump. So there's all this talk about heat pumps and how efficient they are. Well, that's how they work. We're putting 1 kilowatt of energy to make our system work, and we're taking 3 kilowatts of energy from that ice surface, and then we have 4 kilowatts of energy that we're using that is just waste. And we're just releasing that into the atmosphere. So why not utilize that? We're paying for it electricity, right? So we take that, and then where can we use it? Actually, that'll be on my next slide. So that's why Simcoe has put so much effort into doing it different, doing it better. Why do we need that waste byproduct there? Simcoe's actually been doing these type of skid packages with our EcoChill, and then the next phase with our TF1 for about 15, almost 20 years now. So then we wanted to think kind of outside of the box, which is why we're here today, and why we're presenting you with our new TF1. So for your project in particular, we've actually upped the size of the refrigeration plant, and again, just showing kind of on a seasonal running for 4,000 hours. Our TF1 here can produce the equivalent of about 1.3 million kilowatt hours of heat, which is equivalent to 130 cubic meters of natural gas. And like I said, based off of what we had calculated, that facility would require about 137,000 cubic meters of natural gas, so almost enough, again, to offset all of the heat required for that facility. So then where can we use that? So from the refrigeration plant, we can use that in the snowmelt pit, we can use that in the dressing rooms, underfloor heating, right in the bleachers, so putting in tubes underneath the bleachers, especially because you're putting in brand new bleachers, and do in-floor radiant heaters. The nice thing about that is that you're not actually adding additional heat load to the actual ice surface because the heat is coming from the floor. So then it's just making it more efficient for your refrigeration plant as well. Adding in a desuperheater or a heat pump if necessary to boost the heat to give us the domestic hot water. Enough heat for the domestic hot water, the ZAM ice resurfacer, whichever you're using there. So then here's where we get to kind of our proposed concept. So using a hydronic loop, we would want your refrigeration plant to then become the heart of your refrigeration and HVAC, your mechanical system of your new ice rink. So having our hot and cold supply and return for your entire facility. I don't have the second story shown here, but it would obviously be included there. Having the refrigeration plant, working with your designers of the building to kind of make sure that the layout makes the most sense possible, utilizing ice batteries. So ice batteries are a way of forcing when your refrigeration plant, when your ice surface is satisfied, it's at the temperature that you want it to be at, your refrigeration plant is not running, right? It stops running. Well, then we're not producing any heat. Well, because your refrigeration plant is still more efficient than any other heating system out there, any other heating system, if we, 1-to-1 ratio, if we're talking, is not accurate, but let's say to be fair is a 1-to-1 ratio, where a refrigeration plant is 1-to-4, 1 kilowatt of energy, 4 kilowatts waste. So we still want to use that refrigeration plant because it's more efficient. So the ice battery will actually provide that false load and force your refrigeration plant to run to be able to produce that waste heat to provide the heat that is required for the rest of the building. So having those ice batteries that are available, and then also using other mechanical systems such as Simcoe's EcoDry, which is a type of dehumidifier, which we can provide which also provides ventilation and proper fresh air requirements as well. So from there, what we have is our kind of estimated budget for the TF1 for HVAC and refrigeration. So again, this is just based off of kind of some rough budgets. So we have roughly about between 4.1 to 4.5, and this is including, again, this is a total of everything. But what we have here is you're future-proofing your arena and making it so that we're offsetting and having those utility savings. So then here I've got that comparison. So we saw before when I showed the 100-ton refrigeration system running at 4,000 hours. Right here, I've got a 100-ton utilizing as all the heat reclaim as possible. So all the heat reclaim at 100 tons gives you the equivalent of just over 90,000 cubic meters of natural gas. So you can see here we actually have a savings of almost 600,000 from carbon tax and a utility savings of just over 500,000. Whereas with our 150-ton, utilizing all of the refrigeration, so we have a savings of carbon tax of 845,000 and then a savings for utility savings of 143. So you can see obviously here that the electricity consumption is increased. It's a larger plant. It's going to consume more electricity, but that's where you take it to the next level, especially when it comes to a net zero plant, and you invest then in solar. And so there's lots of different grant opportunities for solar, and the sun never increases its rates. So it's a good thing to look into there, right? The only way to offset natural gas when it comes to heating would be going to electrify. How do you offset electricity? You go to solar. So then when it comes to some potential funding opportunities, so here. So this is just kind of a handful of some of them. Simcoe has actually partnered with lots of different companies out there because our goal is to make it easy for communities to meet these targets and make it so that instead of, having all the communities that we talk to, they all have visions. We all want to get to this net zero. We all want to make it less expensive to run these ice rinks because they are expensive to run. But what happens is we have these visions, we talk about these visions, but then when it comes to the actual project, things get lost in translation. And what happens when you've got just different companies, different consultants that are saying different things, the end actual goal of the project doesn't actually meet the vision. And so we're just trying to make it so that the actual vision comes to light. So we've partnered with lots of different companies out there to help communities, including companies that will help get communities these grants. Again, these are just a handful of them, but it's stuff to consider. So the RBC Foundation, Community Infrastructure Foundation, so this one's got a very tight deadline, but it is stuff that constantly is coming up. And one of the things that is really important when you are wanting to apply for grants in general is the planning process. And the fact that you guys are talking about this and planning this now is fantastic because we get a lot of communities that, there's a grant that comes out and it closes in a month and we're nowhere close to, this is not a good example, this one literally closes in a month, but in general, other grants will come out and then we're not ready for it whatsoever. So we want to get ahead and start planning and be ready for next year when grants come out and have it all ready. So then that way we can submit and say, no, this is our plan. This is why we want to do it. This is why it will benefit the community, and this is why it will benefit, the globe and be a leader. So we've got the RBC one there. There's also the Green Municipal Fund. So this is construction of new high-efficiency municipal or community buildings. This one is actually a loan and grant combo. So it is up to 10 million. 15% of it is a loan. 15% of it is a grant, and then the remainder would be a loan. So it is something to actually help you get the additional funding if you are looking to expand the scope of work. And the FCM kind of works out that the rates and everything with the communities. And then the next one would be to help with a study for a new construction and kind of taking things to the next level when it comes to net zero buildings and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to just slide there, and then I'm going to pass it back to Benoit because we can actually even take it one step further.
Tons of information, highly technical, maybe really complicated. Sometimes I get lost myself. In a nutshell, just to summarize, the concept we are offering is basically a central plan that's going to take care of your entire building. Only one system taking care of everything. The way it's being done, it's separate system in every room, in every portion of the building. Nobody's talking to each other. So if everybody's in demand, every system is going to be calling for. If nobody's calling for, well, there's no management of the entire demand and supply. When we're going with an approach like that, it's called district heating and cooling. It could be applied to the entire community, but we start with the building. And when you have district heating and cooling like that, that means that when people are not in demand, they will benefit other area which are in demand. So we have a management of the entire building which is way more efficient than having all independent system. By going with an approach like that, you're going with natural refrigerant, so you remove the I wouldn't say the fear, but the unknown about replacing synthetic refrigerant with the next generation. You're going to have a system that's going to be good for 30 years. Right now, we have over 50 feasibility studies from municipality which are trying to find out what should we do. The easy equation is like we replace all the natural gas equipment, and we're going electrical. The price of electricity is outrageous out here, and eventually the grid will not be capable of doing it. What we are offering again, it's 1 kilowatt of power, 4 kilowatt of heat. And the reason why we presented a bigger system is because we're going to take care of not only your rink need, but also all your air conditioning needs. At this point, there's nothing that stops a community like yours to think about this system, which is capable of eventually expanding in size and being capable of providing other buildings and other using in the vicinity eventually, just by increasing the thinking and the logic. Everybody's going like that in a district and a cooling approach. Now, just to give you an idea, when we do a projects like that, and when we go in a path like that, there's always givers and takers. So a nice rink is a giver. It's giving heat to the loop. A data center is also a giver. Residential area, a gymnasium, a pool are takers of that heat. So if you put everybody together, then you have a global approach. And over time, you don't have to do everything at the beginning. Over time, you can start adding geothermal fuel, solar panel, wind turbine, and eventually become, by 2050, completely net zero, away from natural gas, away from synthetic refrigerant, and a future-proof solution. Really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. If you have any question, we'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the presentation? Councillor Halleroy, please.
Yeah, I just wanted just a quick overview of what the overall savings will be, the standard versus the new. Just one wrap. I was trying to follow the figures, but just to get an idea of the overall savings from day one compared to standard.
Yep. So again, these are just based off of some assumptions that we made on heat load. Some proper engineering would have to go into it. We only went off of kind of the information we had. So this again is from 2024, if the construction was done and we were operating today, only up until 2040. And so this is this utility spent, and for my utility cost for natural gas as well as electricity, I just have about a 2% annual increase in rates. So just on carbon tax, we've got a savings of 808, and then utility savings of 123. But this is not including if you want to take the next step further and actually include solar panels with the building. And this electricity consumption is only on the refrigeration plant as well. So they are a big consumer of electricity, but you want to utilize that waste heat because regardless, you're using electricity.
So what's the utility spend again for the standard versus the 1.7 million? I just wanted to compare like those numbers.
The first approach is 3 million.
So it's 1.8 versus 1.7?
Yeah, utility. So sorry, 1.8 utility. This is just with 1.8 and then 890 in carbon tax. right? And so then the other one was 1.7, but then only 44,000 in carbon tax.
Okay, so that was the huge difference, okay.
So you had about $1 million in savings over
I was trying to-
16 years.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. You're going to love this question. Assumption that carbon tax is eliminated. How do the numbers turn?
That's a big assumption. At the end of the day, you're still saving a lot in natural gas. You're still, especially if you include solar panel, you'd still be saving a big chunk just in electricity costs. So we're still having that holistic approach, right? So the big cost here is that electrical consumption, but regardless, with an ice rink, you're still going to have that electrical consumption. So that is where you want to look at the whole picture, and really adding in those solar panels will help tremendously.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Do you want to give him an idea of what would be the natural gas costs per year if they go as?
Yep, that was the, what do we have there?
60, 80,000.
We had,
Without the carbon tax.
Just a question for clarification. This proposed design does not include geothermal, correct?
no.
No, this is just standalone heat pump
But
technology.
it could be added later on.
Okay.
If you want to increase the system.
Further questions of the presentation? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kyle, is there anything you'd like to add further to the report? No? Okay. Is there any questions from council on the report itself? Seeing Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Yeah, it's good to see this timeline in print. It gives everybody, including council, as well as the residents, at least an initial look at what our plan is, and that we're serious about getting this arena built. It's great to see the addition of the systems, the Simcoe system here, in regards to the net zero possibilities. I guess it's going to make, it brings everything to the real side of what we're doing here. And I mentioned earlier about the filter with the pool. It's great that you brought forward savings with or without carbon tax. It's good to see that those potential savings are there. It's great to see that this whole system is working together, and that we're reclaiming some of the heat out of the ice to feed back into the building and use that as our heating source. So great information this evening, a lot of information, but Kyle, thank you. Thank you from the supplier, Simcoe, and yeah, great. Thank you very much. That's all I wanted to say.
No further questions?
No further questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Halleru, questions?
No, I just wanted to say it was nicely done, Kyle, and thank you to your staff again for giving us the timeline. I know there's always the project creep that will come up, and I think this keeps council on point to follow those timelines, and hopefully, I like the thought of the project manager to come in early and take, kind of control of the details, so I think that was well done.
Thank you. It sounds like we're ready for a motion. Just before I do have one last question. Are these, how many of these systems are up and running right now, operational?
We have over 200 of those systems in Canada and the United States.
So there's proven results from them. Thank you. And with that, if there's no more questions for resolution, Councillor Halleru, I have that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll received staff report CS-013-24 as information.
I will move that.
And that sorry, I just had to catch my breath there. And that council approves funding for the arena reserve, from the arena reserve not exceeding the reserve balance of $2,822,616 to ensure the completion of project milestones identified for 2024. These milestones include, but are not limited to, conducting all required studies, servicing designs, and hiring a project management team.
Yes, I move that.
Excellent. Councillor Van Koot-Bosson is the second. Discussion on that. Seeing none, it's just another exciting day. And again, I appreciate the expertise being brought forward to give us some ideas of what could happen and what's available out there to as technology has progressed over time. It's important that we look at that to make sure that we are most efficient as possible. So, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will now move on to item T-010-24 DC Reserve Fund Statement. Mr. Grace, please.
I'm going to turn this one directly over to Irina.
Thank you, Mr. Grace. So this is the Treasurer's statement on the development charges reserve funds and the activities for the period from January 1st to December 31st, 2023. And this is a requirement of the Development Charges Act that the Treasurer presents that report to Council for information. And it will become available online for anyone to look at later.
Thank you very much. Questions of the report? Seeing none. Councillor Van Koot-Bosson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report T-010-24 as information, and that the 2023 Development Charges Reserve Fund Statement to be made available to the public.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we'll move on to correspondence and resolution. We have the Earth AGM. Would you like some discussion beforehand? Excellent. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Graves, maybe for a quick synopsis, and then we can have some discussion on the attendance.
Council will be familiar with these meetings. We usually appoint individuals to be there, and often Council appoints a voting member as well. I think this resolution is simply speaking to who, and it does recommend an appointment. Council has in the past directed the CAO be appointed, as you can tell me what to do. Which is as eloquently as I could say that. So you may want to consider doing that again, as that's a more straightforward process, and some of you may want to attend as well.
Okay, so it looks like we have, they asked for 3, so we do not have a quorum of council there. I will certainly put my name forward. I'm available that evening and would be happy to attend. Is there others who would like to attend that meeting as well who are available? I'm seeing Councillor Hughes' hand.
I have available time if nobody else does.
Okay. Seeing others, we can have up to 3, so. Okay. I'm just seeing 2 at this time, so.
Okay. Well, I may be available, so I'll put my name down at this point, but I may pull it back afterwards, and I would let all of council know if that's what I can do. I just have to check with my husband, to be very honest. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receives the correspondence from Earth Corporation as information, and that the clerk be directed to advise Earth that the following members of council will attend the Earth AGM on Thursday, May 30th at 7 p.m. Mayor Brian Petrie, Councillor Rick Hughes, and Councillor Christy Van Koot-Bosson. And further, that the CAO be appointed as Ingersoll's designated representative for the purpose of casting a vote at the AGM.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we'll now move down to 19. Deputy Mayor Wilson, do you have a resolution for Mr. Grote's tree protection bylaw?
Let's see here. That the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll received the correspondence from Cody Grote requesting the adoption of a tree protection bylaw as information. Sorry, I'm not quite prepared with anything further without discussion.
Okay. We do have a motion on the floor. Discussion.
So it's no secret I would have liked to see more from the tree bylaw when it initially went into place. So I wasn't upset to see the feedback from Mr. Grote. And if we're hearing from the community that the tree protection and tree canopy bylaw isn't doing what we intended it to do, I think it's prudent to revisit. I can't recall the commitment in that motion at the time the tree policy went into place. But I do recall from our strategic plan update in December that we did not meet our tree planting goal in the very first year that this policy was in place. So even on that, and coupled with what Mr. Grote has presented, I would like to see the policy revisited. I'm just not sure in which form makes the most sense. I would personally be favorable to a private tree bylaw, but I can understand how council may want further information in the form of a staff report.
So with that, what I could recommend is that we receive this information, and then if we have like a notice of motion or something come forward along those lines, council has, looking at the clerk on this, if we need to reconsider what we had done in the previous, because this term of council has passed a bylaw, but so maybe we do need a little bit of time that could be brought something back at next council meeting or something like that, or work with staff. Or
if I could, the tree policy that you adopted before was more about encouraging more trees to be planted and encouraging a replacement factor. It didn't really speak to a tree protection bylaw. So I don't think you'd have to do a motion to reconsider your previous policy. I think this is more of additional to what you've done so far. Council has put in their strategic plan, the goal is to get more trees. So one way is through the tree policy, but if that's not getting you where you're hoping to go, there can be other ways. A tree protection bylaw is possible, but I do caution that a couple of the concerns may be that they may require some more staff resources. I think normally it's in cities where they do this. And also you are requiring individuals to, you're affecting them in their own private property, which may be seen as a concern for some individuals. And also, if they get an arborist to say that they can cut down a tree, it doesn't prohibit them from cutting down a tree. So there are concerns, but all of that could be requested of staff to do a report to look into that in further detail and perhaps even look at what some successes have been. I've not looked at other cities to see if they've had measurable, if they could say, since implementing this, we've seen X number of trees not cut down, or something along that lines. But council could direct us to investigate that report.
Councillor Halleran, please.
Yeah, thank you, through your mayor. I just wanted to say, I think this was definitely timely coming from the fact that, like you said, the CAOs had mentioned, I was just going to say, the tree policy we put in place was more to do with industrial lands and cutting down trees and replanting trees. And I remember at the time, I thought we would have a policy that had more to do with, say, within our town and within neighborhoods, and perhaps a simple thing like a permit to cut down specific trees so that we would actually be able to count and keep track. And I would think that at this point, something that deters people from just going ahead without permission, even if they did get permission, a tree could still come down, but at least we're able to keep track. And I think that's what I think Cody is referring to, just the indiscriminate, freedom that we do currently have to cut down trees. And I think if I were to put a motion through, it would be to have staff review things as simple as a permit requirement for cutting down specific kind of trees, And maybe that's the angle we should look at more than just the overall planting and placing industrial trees.
I certainly want to, I agree that we are seeing mature trees being cut down, but I'm very cautious about telling people what they can and can't do on their private property, especially when it comes to the resources they have there. I'd rather take I think that we need to encourage, provide that carrot and have people plant trees and then make it easy as possible to do so. It can be I'm just very hesitant from a personal standpoint of, I really don't want to tell people what to do on their personal property unless it's for safety reasons or true, planning reasons for that matter. As much as I love trees, other people do not love trees on their property. They can be very dangerous. They can be time consuming. They can be maintenance. There's a myriad of issues that people may or may not want trees on their property. And so to me, that's a personal choice. From a municipal standpoint, though, I think we have a very strong voice in saying that we need trees on municipal property and do a long way, and then encourage people to be able to do stuff on their own property. If that's the route that they choose to take, we can make it very affordable for them to make sure that happens. But I'm just hesitant on telling people what they can and can't do on their property as much as possible without being a safety issue. Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, I agree with your personal property rights concerns. It makes it difficult. Yes, do we need, excuse me, do we need trees? Yes, absolutely. They provide shade, they provide oxygen. They provide homes for birds and wildlife. Just a couple of quick questions to staff, and I'm not sure who would answer this. We currently have a tree program where we give out free trees. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you know what the uptake is on that?
Between 40 and 60 a year.
Now, I believe there's a specific requirement where they're only allowed to be planted in the front yard. Is that, I know I'm drawing into the memory there.
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Maybe we could eliminate that requirement where it can only be planted in a front yard and allow people to put these in their backyard, because you can only put so many trees in your front yard.
I think the only requirement that I'm aware of is that they can't be planted in the boulevard.
Right.
But I don't know, but I'd have to look into what the regulations are.
Because it just might be an opportunity as you know, if we want people to plant tree, let's make it easier for them. And it might even be a scenario where we might need to push that out a little more on our social medias, socials that A, we have it available, and B, spur people on to at least start planting or looking at planting trees anywhere on their property if they so choose. Even if it's I don't want to say a credit program kind of thing, but look at some sort of scenario that would support people making that decision.
Okay. So right now we do have a motion on the floor to accept this information. I would encourage, sounds like there's some interest around the table from council, so I would encourage to have those conversations, and those can always be brought forward to staff or a meeting through a notice of motion or through discussion to try to certainly to try to reach some way forward on that. But Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens.
I have just another question. Out of you said 140 trees that we make available? No, you're looking at me.
About 40 to 60.
40 to 60 is what the uptake is. Is that all that we offer out to the community as well?
We have more available.
So all the extra that don't get on the uptake, do we do anything with those? Do we plant them ourselves in our areas of the municipality?
Where possible, yes, we do that. And we are trying to work closely with UTRCA to replant a bunch of areas in town. UTRCA has been busy with a couple other major policy issues in the last little while, but we think when they are available, we'll be able to work on a couple areas that we've set aside that we will easily overshoot our targets per year if we join with them. but we need their assistance on that. But there are a couple things that staff could, or council could ask staff to look at is, as recommended, are there areas that we currently don't allow them, that if we did allow them, that would allow for more trees to be planted? I think right now we allow 1 tree per household. Could councils open that up to more? One of the parts that we do with the review every year to see if we're hitting our targets can be how much money are we budgeting for trees. One option is for council just to budget more and to say whatever we don't get, you plant. And all that is to say too that council could direct staff to implement a tree bylaw. That's certainly a possibility, and that it could be done, that it's a requirement for a permit or a protection of private property as well as the other side of it. So council has a whole bunch of options. All of these really come down to a level of service discussion, so you're well within your jurisdiction to consider them.
If I may. So I can see it both ways. I'm not adverse to, Deputy Mayor, of us putting together something to bring back to the next council meeting. But I'm also weary of directing people what they can and can't do on their property. It is their own private property, and I know that I have like 3 massive big trees around me, and there are times that I'd like to cut them down because I'm afraid that it's going to come down on my house or on my vehicle or hurt somebody, you know, in my neighboring area. But at the same time, they provide a lot within our community as well. We have a lot of old trees, but we need to continue to plant. So maybe we can put our heads together like the mayor has said, and we can come up with a notice of motion for the next one, because I'd like to see more trees planted in that respect, and we can maybe work with the CAO and try to get that so that it's worded and brought back to council. So.
Deputy Mayor Wilson, please. And then my mic.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Agreeable to that, Councillor Van Kooten-Boston's, because what I don't want to be is hasty and not get it right, so I think that's a good plan. But the one thing I did want to comment on was the free trees that are given away. The feedback that I've heard, and quite frankly, what I've seen with my own eyes, is they're quite spindly. And maybe something we need to revisit is, you know, they're probably the least expensive trees, but maybe what's better is less trees that are higher quality and get more uptake and so on. So I don't think that there's not interest. I think it's just that what's being offered is not necessarily what people want to put in their front yard. So that might be something we could revisit too.
Further discussion? Oh, Councillor Halleran, please.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that when we talk about permits or you know, obstacles to just having people cut down their trees, it's not that you're telling people what they can or cannot do. Actually, sometimes it's helping them to get the right help to properly dispose of that tree or decide what the problem is and figure out if that tree can survive. So for us to continue to think that we're taking people's rights away when we're trying to solve a problem, I don't think is the right approach. So we should be open-minded to come up with the motion that deals with both, you know, planting trees, but we also truly need to take a look at the way that trees are disposed of, because we are a growing community. And just to remind you, a lot of people from the cities don't like trees. And if you don't have something in place right now, in the next 3-4 years, a lot of trees that could have been saved will be gone because we're feeling like we're taking rights away instead of looking at it from a real perspective that we're saving the environment and we're trying to make sure that there's a hesitation. So if someone comes and asks for help through whatever motion we're going to put through, I think staff should really be encouraged to look at ways that there's that one step in between someone just deciding to cut a tree and getting rid of a very beautiful tree. So I just wanted to clarify that so that if they're putting a motion together, they could consider that too.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we will now go to safe and well training. Is there anything you'd like to highlight on that? Or Councillor Hudson, do you have a resolution?
Thank you. Through you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive as information the correspondence from the Oxford Safe and Well Steering Committee on Gender-Based Violence Training Resources and that council direct staff to make the training and resources available through circulation to all employees.
Thank you very much. Discussion. Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I just wanted to speak a little bit to the training from what I learned over the last couple of days. But this training came through as part of recommendations that are a result of death reviews. So when someone dies as a result of intimate partner violence, the coroner does a review and makes recommendations. And the recommendation from many reviews is that public education and recognizing the signs of intimate partner violence in the people in your life are how we can prevent intimate partner violence from becoming a homicide. And so I watched the training today because I was curious about what it involved and what the application might be municipally. And in the case study, they used a woman from Ingersoll who died of intimate partner violence. So it has already affected our community, and this training is a way that we can prevent intimate partner violence and femicide in the future. It took actually less than an hour. It really did not take that long. And I do feel confident after taking the training that I would be able to recognize some of the signs and know how to talk to someone and how to refer them to support. So I think, you know, the least we can do is encourage our staff to take it, because the other thing I learned is that victims of intimate partner violence often experience that violence in the workplace. So they might be stalked or followed to work. And so the co-workers are often who recognize the signs of violence in the workplace. So in speaking with Monique, making it mandatory is difficult at this time, but we can certainly encourage staff to foster a safer workplace by participating in the training.
Thank you very much. Councillor Halleru.
Yeah, I just want to echo that because, again, when you talk about intimate partner violence, most times they are seen either together in public places, and I think our municipal areas that we offer recreation or, you know, services are a place that we could encourage people to reach out to, and so having staff really do that training, I think, is important. So we're all on alert, we're all able to see through and have people be proactively aware that we know what to look for and how to help them. So I think it's just about taking that proactive step.
Thank you. Further discussion? Certainly, I'll be very honest that someone very close to me has been a victim of intimate partner violence, very close to being a statistic. And so anything we can do to try to stop this is 100% I'm in favor of. It's not acceptable, regardless of gender or who's perpetrating. It is unacceptable to be violent towards another person. And so full support on that. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And item 21, Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Halleru, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive as information the correspondence from Aaron Corcoran of Remax Realty concerning Menstrual Health Day.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And item number 22. These for Councillor Halleru, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive as information the correspondence from Sam Horton on behalf of the Kiwanis Club of Ingersoll requesting the fees be waived for the Kiwanis Market opening, and that Council approve the request to waive the $49.72 fee for the event. There's approve or deny there, so I'll, Councillor Halleru?
Yes, approved.
Thank you.
Approves that.
And Councillor Van Kooten-Boston is willing to second that. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will move to item number 23. Councillor Van Kooten-Boston, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, That the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receives as information the correspondence from the Ingersoll Municipal Heritage Committee, and that Council directs staff to continue to move forward with designating the memorial bandshell in Memorial Park under the Ontario Heritage Act in accordance with designation criteria and historical features detailed in the Statement of Historical Value of the Ingersoll Memorial Bandshell document as attached to the resolution and as considered by the Municipal Heritage Committee at their meeting on May 2nd, 2024.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Certainly, it was at the meeting, and this committee worked very hard on this. This was a good goal for them to achieve. There was a lot of enthusiasm about this being something that they can accomplish. It's a nice, easy one because the municipality owned it, so it was a good learning experience for the committee, and we're able to go through and name a number of things that are very important. And I think this will allow for to begin the work towards taking those fences down and be able to have it used. And the great thing about it is it's going to hopefully be restored to its former glory. There's not a lot of these around. The committee was surprised at how hard it was to find information on the actual date of construction. They did a lot of research going through records, and they just haven't been able to nail that down 100%. But they were very happy to be able to provide this recommendation to council based off their work, and they're, yeah, I'm sure they're at home just on bated breath. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will now go into bylaws. Deputy Mayor Wilson, please. You drove the short straw tonight.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hudson, that the mover have leave to introduce and go into committee of the whole on the following bylaws. 1, bylaw 24-5308, BIA levy. 2, bylaw 24-5309, amend fees and charges bylaw to introduce camping fees. 3, bylaw 24-5310, 17 Ann Street BIA facade loan agreement. 4, bylaw 24-5311, pre-servicing agreement with Sifton Properties. 5, bylaw 24-5312, adoption of the 2024-2027 multi-year budget. 6, bylaw 24-5313, adoption of 2024 expenditures and established tax rates. 7, bylaw 24-5314, 37 King Street West BIA facade loan agreement. Bylaw 24-5315, 159 10th Street South BIA facade loan agreement. 9, bylaw 24-5316, 136 10th Street South BIA facade loan agreement. 10, bylaw 24-5317, May 13th, 2024 confirmation bylaw. Council in committee of the whole, Mayor Petrie and the chair, on motion, the bylaws are accepted as circulated. That constitutes the first and second reading of the bylaws.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Seeing none. All those, this is just to go into committee of the whole. No, this is to go into committee of the whole. Councillor Bowman, please.
Yes, I was just trying to reach up to turn my mute off. I just wanted to make a comment on the bylaws, if it's
so if we could just hold off until we have that vote,
go
we'll
ahead.
be in the committee of the whole, and then we can have full discussion in there.
Go ahead, because I was just reaching up to try and turn my mic on.
Not a problem. Sorry. For discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We're through the procedure, and now we're in the committee of the whole. And Councillor Bowman, you would like to discuss the bylaws. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Good. I just wanted to make a comment, Mr. Mayor, about the bylaw 24-5310, 24-5314, 15, and 16. These for the facade improvement have been approved by the BIA board. The funds will be advanced by the town on a 4-year loan, and upon the repayment of the 3 payments on time to the town, the BIA will be picking up the 4th payment on their behalf. Just for clarification purposes, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any further discussion of the bylaws? Seeing none, Councillor Hudson, please.
No,
Oh, Councillor Halleru, sorry. Go ahead.
All right, I just wanted to say it's amazing to see the facade downtown changing. I'm just noticing a lot of beautiful buildings looking different, and I wanted to commend that program. So, yeah, it's just making our downtown look a lot nicer.
100% agree. Councillor Hudson, please.
Thank you. Through you, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the bylaws 24-5308 to 24-5317 be now read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed, and this constitutes the third reading of the bylaws.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor, oh, wait a minute, did we do that backwards? Oh, I do have a Councillor Use, the committee do now rise.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself.
So just, their number, so just before, that should have been done prior to the third reading. So we're just going to have that third reading again after, but if you want to go ahead and do this one.
Sure. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Halleru, that the committee do now rise out of committee of the whole.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And just for make sure we're proper, Councillor Hudson, could you please reread that resolution, please, for the third reading?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the bylaws 24-5308 to 24-5317 be now read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed, and this constitutes the third reading of the bylaws.
Excellent. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Again, thank you very much. And we will now go into closed session. Councillor Halleru, I have a motion that says that council do now go into closed meeting at 9:16 p.m. pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, discuss the following matters. 1, minutes of the closed session, March 26, 2024, and 2, 239(2)C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board industrial land offer. Are you okay to move?
Thank you, I do move. I do move that.
Councillor Van Kouten-Boston's discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will now reconvene in the J.C. Herbert room.